I'm going to talk about something I haven't talked about for a little while on my show. I did an episode on it probably a few months ago, maybe 4 months ago or something, or 5 months ago I did an episode on it. It's about what would happen if, heaven forbid, what kind of the world would be like if we disintegrate into a Mad Max type of scenario. A real full-scale, all over the earth shift type of thing if the financial system goes down. Worst case scenario, if the financial system goes down and everything just basically locks up. The financial system locks up. And we have to explore this possibility because the reason why is because it could happen. It could actually happen. Because everything runs on money, and it's the type of system that they've put in place where in the old days, like 100 years ago, people would work out of a sense of civic responsibility and pride. They would open their store or whatever if the government needed them to, even though they knew they weren't going to make any money. But they could open their store even without the power turned on. They could go in and they used the till that they would use, had a crank on it, go ka-ching like this, and the money that they used didn't rely upon electricity, and they could open everything up back in the old days, And even their farm implements and everything, they were set up. It's a different world. They were set up so that this kind of a situation that could shut down the world wouldn't happen back then. It just simply wouldn't happen. But because we've modernized everything, we haven't helped ourselves any. And we've created the kind of world where this is a possibility. It's very unlikely, it's very remote, but there is a possibility. And I did a show on how to stay alive in this kind of a scenario. A lot of preppers out there, a few of them took exception to a few of the things that I said in the program, but I think it's things that they didn't really think of, It didn't really occur to them about how bad it actually might be, and the fact that even though you might be fully prepared for a situation like this. Now, say you're a prepper, or you're the ultimate prepper. I mean, you've got all your guns, and you've got all your ammunition, and you're the best crack shot, and you've been trained how to use tactical maneuvers and everything. You might even be like a Navy SEAL or something like that, and we get some sort of a shift disaster like this. Don't like to hear it, but you might not make it through because it's not all about your actual gun skills. It's not all about your actual being able to defend yourself. When you're awake, I have, if you're that type of a person, if you're an ex-Navy SEAL or whatever, I have faith in your ability to defend yourself. You probably got an AK-47 or whatever. You're just like Rambo, for crying out loud. But the problem is this type of disaster is something that is going to be long-term if the world shuts down into an actual shift disaster. It's not going to be you defending yourself for 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's going to be an ongoing situation that lasts months and months and months. And how long can a person actually stay on guard? How long can they hold out the food supplies, their water supplies? And what about radiation? So I'm going to discuss topics like this tonight. I'm going to discuss things like radiation. And you say, well, it might not be a nuclear, it's a financial thing. And that's right. Okay, the world disintegrates into a financial chaos, right? And there is no launch of the nuclear weapons. The nuclear missiles, they stay in their silos. They never launched. They just sit there. Okay? So you say to yourself, well, where's radiation going to come from? And I'm going to tell you exactly where radiation is going to come from. All of those nuclear power plants, they've stationed them all over the earth, here, there, and everywhere. The idiots. An idiot is another term for politician. But they've stationed them everywhere, these stupid nuclear power plants. And you just can't switch a nuclear power plant off. If you don't have the technicians there to turn the right valves on at the right times and stuff, the thing overheats and melts down. And so, in this disaster, where nobody can even get to work. I mean, the electricity's turned off for weeks, months. You can't pump the gasoline. You can't all of the things that they've put in to keep the electricity, temporary power supplies to supply power to things that are essential services. They mostly run them off of big diesel engines that are built to last a certain period of time. So the diesel engine will come on, the emergency power will come on, things like hospitals and stuff. That's a temporary system, again. Now, luckily, those systems are in place in case of a disaster. The systems that will supply emergency power to things like hospitals and things like that, and the city water supplies and so on. I could go on and on. The same with the nuclear plants. They have those emergency backup generators in there to supply water to keep the nuclear power plant cool in the event of emergency. But those systems are only temporary systems. They're not meant to be run on permanently. You're not supposed to use that for your permanent electrical source. It's only to be used for maybe a few days, at the most, and then it basically is served its purpose, and there's no third redundant system put in place. There's only one backup system, and that's it. There's no secondary backup system to back up the backup, if you understand what I'm saying. And so the kind of world we'd be entering into after about 2 weeks, these nuclear power plants would tend to melt down, and nobody would even know where the radiation is going. I mean, this is just absolute. The world could just turn into an absolute mess. Absolute mess. And so, survival, if this kind of a meltdown were to happen, truly happen, and the whole world's financial system were to melt down, lock everything up completely, and send us into a Mad Max type of scenario, I'm not going to talk about it very often on here. And the reason why is what I'm going to explain to you next is, even if you're a hardcore survivalist, or just if you're the ordinary guy out there, your time limit is you might last a few months, you might last a year or two, but ultimately, I don't think your chances are very good unless you're in the right spots on the earth. There would be a few people that would survive through it in the long term, but they would have to have everything going for them just right. They would have to be in a spot where there's no residual radiation. They would have to be in a spot where they could grow fruit and vegetables pretty much year-round. They would have to be in a spot where the people, the community is supportive. They would have to have an awful lot of things going for them in order to actually survive in the long term. But so what I'm really going to talk about now is survival in the short term. Because nobody wants to die right now. If the crisis were to occur tomorrow morning, say, you wouldn't want to, just because the crisis has occurred, you want to last as long as you could. I mean, everybody doesn't want to die. If you say you're going to die right now, you'd say, no, I don't want to die right now. I'll die later, always later. So you want to last as long as you could, even though that we were in a crisis situation where ultimately it would probably end up leading to your death anyway. But you'd want to last as long as you could, so you wouldn't want to just give up and die immediately. You want to last. You want every day is something that's valuable, and you want to fight for. And so, how do you stay alive as long as you can in this kind of a situation? Because there is a chance, maybe 2 years might go by and you survive for 2 whole years, and maybe some other groups of people would be able to get together and bring some sort of order back from chaos and come and rescue you. And so there's always a chance that of if life is on and you're alive. My grandmother used to have a saying. She used to say, "You're alive until you're dead." I mean, it's so self-explanatory. You're alive until you're dead. But it's so true, you know? And nobody wants to die, so you want to continue to stay alive. So how do you... There's certain things that can really kill you in this kind of situation. And one of the things I explained in my first video I did on this is that what you would face is, even if you are a survivalist and a guy that's got all kinds of guns and weapons and everything else, and I mean you're Rambo, okay? Pretend you're Rambo right now. You're one of these guys that's Rambo. I mean, you're like an ex-Navy SEAL, and you got all these guns and weapons and everything else, and you're the best. You're the best. I mean, fit. Able to climb up a rope without using your legs even. Just use your arms and pull yourself up, you know, and able to do parachute drops, and you got all these super weapons and everything else. Well, there's a problem with all of this. And you're most vulnerable when you're asleep. And that's when these gangs are going to come out. And that's when they're going to be doing their looting. And you got to sleep, man. You got to sleep. I mean, you might try to stay up night after night. And, you know, these looters are out there. And you're going to have to, in this kind of a situation, and this is what I'm getting at, your survival depends on you actually learning how to hide. Especially when you're asleep and you're at your most vulnerable. That's when you want to be hid. And even if you are the Rambo, you need to be hid when you're sleeping. You need to sleep differently. If this crisis comes, right now, you sleep in your bedroom and you got a nice window over there, right there, and you can see out and see the moon every night. Oh, isn't it so lovely, you know? You got your air conditioner running, you know, and you got your nice, soft, comfy bed with the luxury foam and everything like that right now in this society, and that's fine. Because we have police patrolling down the street every night, you know, and keeping you safe and sound in your bed, and nothing much ever happens, you know, in this kind of a scenario that we have now. But if these politicians and these fat bankers out there, if they let this world disintegrate into chaos, and it's their fault. It's their fault for the way they've run everything into the ground. Just like right now, it's Obama's fault that Kim Jong-un is building up this big arsenal on us, and now Donald Trump is having to take care of it, or try to take care of it. But it's Obama's fault. Well, it's these bankers' fault that we're in the situation that we're in. They're the ones who took out all the railways across America so that we could transport goods cheaply and safely, and we had steam rail, which was the best. I mean, if a steam rail locomotive were to run out of coal, and they could burn coal, but they could also stop and chop trees out of the woods, take deadfall out of the woods and get them fire their engine up, or just hardwood cordwood, or even softwood cordwood they could burn, and they would still be able to transport stuff across country. But what do we got now? We got these diesel locomotives. The engine won't even start if the computer's not working right. They got it's all computerized. I don't even think that they'll start if the internet's not up and running. These big diesel locomotives. And we've taken out all of the rail, which is the best form of transportation. And we've put in this trucking system. And this trucking system is just as vulnerable as it could ever be to a financial crisis. Financial crisis would completely break down the trucking systems, because they have to have they have all of these big trucking firms. They're all linked into the banks so tight. If the banks go down, they stop. The trucks stop running. You know, and so this is what the bankers have gotten us into. So you got your bed now, and you got your nice window, and you got maybe a sliding glass patio out there and everything, and you got your bedroom and nice windows all around your bedroom. You lay in your bed, and the moonlight comes in your room at night and everything else, you know. And you'll crack your window open at night when you're sleeping, like at certain times of the year, like in the spring and in the fall, or you might use your air conditioner in the summer. And you're laying in there, and you haven't got a care in the world right now, because that's the kind of world we live in. But if this world disintegrates into a Mad Max world, and you get tired after the first day or two defending your home, so you're out there with your AK-47 and you're going to shoot anything that moves, you know, and okay, it works great, you know, but when you're going to be vulnerable is when you go and you figure that the world is just like it's always been, and you get tired and you crawl into that same bed you got, you know. And that's when these gangs are going to come. The gangs are going to come at like 4 a.m., 3 a.m. That's when they're going to come. And they're not going to make a lot of noise. They're going to be very quiet. Because they are actually, they've turned into just like jackals, is what they'll be. They are looters, is what they are. And they will become jackals. They will become something like hyenas. A pack of hyenas. But they're not stupid hyenas. They're not like the hyenas out in the wilderness who run around yipping and yelling and stuff, you know, and they laugh like hyenas. But no, these guys will be quiet. These guys will be slinking around, and they'll be going out in bands of 4 to 6 to 8 of them in a band, you know. And they'll be going in looting places. And they'll be quiet because they don't want to wake people up that are sleeping, because they want to take them by surprise. This is what they want to do. This is what these guys will want to do. They want to take the people by surprise. So if you're laying in your bed, they're going to take you by surprise. So one of the things, immediately, as soon as this shift crisis occurs, one of the first things that you want to do is find a safe place to sleep, a hiding spot to sleep, a place where nobody would ever look for you or never think that you were there. A place where they could root all through your house, digging through your house and everything. And they would look through your house and they'd think you're not there. And so they would be, then they would open up and they'd start talking to one another, and they'd start making noise and stuff inside your house because they think your house is empty. Well, that will wake you up from your sleeping spot. That's what you want. That's the kind of sleeping spot you want, first off. And so that's one of the things about this crisis that's occurring. Now, another thing about it is just remember, if this crisis does come, you're not going to be able to buy any more bullets for your weapon. So keep that in mind. Bullets would be like gold. Bullets will be just like gold, maybe worth more than gold, if this crisis actually occurs, because trade is going to fall off for a while anyway, until some sort of order would be restored. A piece of gold wouldn't be worth much because you can't eat it. Things that'll be worth more is things like coffee, things like salt. You know, and salt was used for money at one time. Salt would be very valuable. If you want to figure out what this world would be like in a shift, watch the show Survivor a little bit. They fight like heck on Survivor. They do these tests, you know. They get one side over here, Team A and Team B, and they get them to fight. And what they're fighting for is things like a chicken egg, things that we take for granted, things like a chicken egg, things like a bottle of spices. Oh, they're just crazy about spices on Survivor. A little basket of spices, salt and pepper, and after they've been on that island for a week with nothing but bland rice. And by the way, on that show, they give them rice. They give them things to keep them from completely dying. They don't have them with zero, nothing. They give them a certain amount of food. And do you see how quick they get thin and skinny? And that's with them giving them food. They give them like a bag of rice and stuff. And you see how quick they lose weight. They lose like 3 pounds a day on that show. And mostly they just sit around and talk strategy. You know? And still they lose weight like crazy. Simple things that something to be able to make fire. You know, because in a shift, your power ain't going to come on. It ain't going to come on to turn on your heat pump. You know? And that's probably what you rely upon for heating and cooling. And so whatever the temperature is outside, if it's blazing hot outside, it's going to be blazing hot inside your house. And if the temperature is cold outside, you're going to be cold in the shift. So how are you going to get warm? Got to think about things like that. You could quite literally freeze to death on a winter after a shift occurs if you're not set up for wood heat. If all you've got is an oil heater in your house, can you convert that oil heater into wood? Do you have a chimney that you could convert your oil heater into wood? I mean, you might have to, your furnace that you have, if you live in a northern climate, your first winter after a shift, in order to stay alive, you might have to actually bust a hole in your oil burner and build some sort of a small fire on and pull the panels out of your furnace so that the air can flow through it into your house to give you some sort of heat. You know? Cooking. Cooking's a big one. In a shift, in some sort of a disaster, or if the financial system goes down, you're not going to want to let the smells of your cooking go out through your neighborhood. Even if you're out in the country, the smell of cooking can travel for miles, and they can smell it on the air. You know? And so that's something that you got to take care of as well. Lights. A generator is not going to do you any good at all. And even if you've got solar power, it's not going to do you any good at all, because if they see any hint of light in your building at night, it's going to draw them in. They'll come hunting for you. After a few months goes by, 2 or 3 months goes by into this disaster, if we have this disaster, it's not going to be so dangerous for the looters anymore. Most of them will have either died off or disappeared at that point, and you'll be on your own. Then you'll be able to sleep more comfortably, because there won't be these looters coming every night trying to find things. They'll disappear after the first little while. They're going to meet their own demise, those looters. A number of them will end up being shot, because it's just an inherent danger in it of them going in and trying to pillage somebody in the middle of the night, and they'll end up getting shot, a lot of them, you know. And other things will happen to them, where a lot of them will probably die from starvation. They just won't make it, because just the inherent fact that they're out there looting shows that they don't have the right mindset to make it through something like this. To make it through something, the guy that's going to make it through the longest is the guy that can hunker down the best and take care of what he has, rather than trying to take what somebody else has from them. He's the guy that's going to make out the best in the end, even if he doesn't have a lot. If he's able to use what he has to the best of his advantage, he's going to make out the best of anybody. Not taken from other people, but actually the kind of person that would help fit in with a community. Community is actually going to be your best friend in this situation. If you can form community bonds now, before the shift or before the disaster occurs, that's going to be your best friend. In fact, there's going to probably be certain communities that can, if this thing were to occur, I'm saying now, I'm only giving it a small percentage of chance of occurring. I don't think that there's a real strong possibility that this is going to occur. And heaven forbid if it ever happens. But there are going to be places that make it right through the whole period of it, and the people actually survive the whole thing. But I don't think it's going to be so much in the northern climates, because I think that ultimately it's going to be awfully hard to make it through the winter, and seasonal growing is not the best, you know. So where I'm at right now is not really all that good a spot if we have that kind of a disaster for me to survive. It's not good. My odds would not be good to be able to survive up here in this harsh climate. And this really is a harsh climate up here in Canada. This is why the settlers, I don't think they started up here in Canada. My old grandfather, he used to have a saying about that, but I mean, I'm not going to repeat it here because it's a little bit controversial anyway. About Canada. It wasn't real flattering, my grandfather used to say about it. It's not a bad, it's a nice place and everything, but the climate, let's face it, the United States of America, USA, has everything south of the border where it's warmer, and the climate up here is much harsher. It's a harsher climate. It's much further north. There's only one little spot in Canada where it doesn't snow much, and that's around Vancouver, But, I mean, the rest of Canada is very harsh climate, very cold winters, blowy and snowy kind of winters, something like what America has up around Minneapolis and St. Paul, they get a bad winter up and around there, But anyway, so surviving this kind of a disaster, let's get back to surviving it. You need food supplies that aren't going to go bad on you. Now, an awful lot of these guys make the mistake of putting away food supplies that are actually perishable, but they don't realize that they're perishable. Like, they'll put like brown flour away, Don't put away brown flour. Don't put away brown rice or anything brown. If it's brown, don't put it away. Even brown sugar. First off, brown sugar will turn into a rock. And it's all right if the disaster, after 6 months, your brown sugar will turn into a rock. So if you got it stored it for a year, your brown sugar is going to be a rock, and you're going to need to beat it with a hammer. Now, but at least you can still do something with your brown sugar, But your brown rice is going to go rancid. It's the oils in it and stuff. Nuts. Nuts go rancid. Most of them. Now, there is a type of nuts you can buy. Planters nuts, the dry roasted ones, in the bottles, the glass bottle that are vacuum sealed. Those particular type of peanuts will not go rancid for about 5 years. They're good for about 5 years. So those are the ones to buy. Now, when I'm telling you about these prepping, I've been prepping back before the year 2000, way back into the 1900s. Before the year 2000, when it was like 1999, I think I started, somewhere around in there. And I made a lot of mistakes in my early preps. So I've been preparing for this financial disaster thing for a long time. I've known it's coming for a long time. But I'm surprised that it's taken this long to actually get here. But it's finally on the doorstep of being here now, But I'm going to tell you a little bit about the food supplies that you can store and the ones you can't. Ramen noodles go bad, but they take quite a little while to go bad if you keep them dry. They take about maybe 2 years. So that's pretty good. That's fair good. Canned food. They're good for about 2 or 3 years, too, so that's fair goods, Bottled water, great stuff. It'll last 10 years, 20 years, whatever. You can store it away for the longest periods of time, bottled water. One of the best things you can store away is white, enriched, bleached white flour. It's not real good for you, but it'll store for ages and ages and ages. And you can make bread out of it. But what you need to do is, along with storing your white enriched white flour, like Robin Hood white flour, or any blend of bleached white flour, the stuff's like rat poison. Nothing will, things will eat it, but not much. They don't even eat it much. But the stuff If you seal it away in a dry, cool place, you can use it 20 years from now. It's like it never goes bad. It's like chloridane. It's like white powdered. I mean, it's like the stuff, and you can eat it. What you do is you can make bread out of it during the crisis. What you do is you got to have buy a can of yeast, and that lasts a long time too. A sealed can of yeast, a big can like this. It'll last you right through a long time through your crisis. You can buy the 50-pound bags of flour, and put away a few of them for yourself. Dried beans last a long time too. Peanuts don't last real long. They go rancid. They're about a year, something like about a year. Peanuts, Now, another thing that's going to be very tradable after the crisis, if there is a crisis, is playing cards. Decks of playing cards. And they're not real expensive to buy decks of playing cards. Cigarettes. Greatest thing. Coffee. Great thing to put away. Salt. Great thing to put away. Spices. Great thing to put away. Candles. Buy them cheap. Buy them by the bulk. Great thing to put away. These are part of your prepping supplies. You know what I mean? Pick one gun you like. Buy lots of bullets for it. Focus on bullets. I think this is going to be a problem for some of the preppers, is the fact that they got a lot of guns that they like. They got like 30 different guns that they like. Oh, I like this one, I like that one, I like that one, right? But how many bullets do they got for each one? They might have just a handful of bullets for each one. Got more guns than they got bullets. Well, you want to have it the other way around. You want to have way more bullets than guns. Just a few guns. You can have as many guns as you want, but pick a few of the ones that you like the best and load up on bullets for those ones. So that you're going to have plenty of bullets. You're not going to run out of bullets. You don't want to run out of bullets. So that's one of the things. Making fire. You don't want to run out of your ability to make fire. So you want to have lots of fire-making supplies. You want to have tools put away for yourself. Hand tools, specifically. Hand saws and stuff, are very important. Axes and hatchets and hand saws are very important. And what's most important is having a good place to hide. Another thing that's very important to put away now is go to your local farm store, and there's two things you should be buying. One of the things you should buy is a big round thing. It's like 70 pounds. It's about this big around, and it's a big coil of barbed wire. Buy the thin gauge barbed wire sharper. And right now, what to do is be careful when you take it home that you don't cut yourself on it. Wear gloves, and just put it away someplace in the back of a closet or someplace like that. What you're going to use that for is, after the shift occurs, you're going to use that to make your house more secure. It doesn't need electricity or anything like that, and the barbs on it are sharp as heck. You know what I mean? That's going to help make your house more secure. But don't take it out. Leave it rolled up. Don't take it out until after you're in some sort of a world crisis. That's the time that you're going to be using that. Bells. Have a few bells. Cowbells. Buy some cowbells, old cowbells. You want to put them around your house. They don't require any electricity. You can put them on your doors and stuff. And if you're in the disaster, if somebody is encroaching on your place, they're going to ring the bells and they're going to alarm you. It's very important. So there's a number of things. Water making is very important. To have a system that can actually filter water for you or you can use some sort of a system to boil and distill water. But water making is very important. Now in the cities, if we get this kind of a disaster, the cities are going to turn to hellholes. It's just as simple as that. The cities will turn to hellholes. And one of the reasons why, and they're going to turn to hellholes fast, is because cities, the water supply in the cities, they have backup water supplies that are supposed to be good for weeks to keep the water pressure up in the city. And how that works is they got water towers, and it works on gravity feed. But they, more than just water towers, they have backup pumping systems that can keep the water pressure up in the cities. So for the water mains and stuff, to keep the water pressure up in the city for extended periods of time. But after about a week goes by, and that's only about 7 or 8 days, those systems are going to be on and being used. Your water that's going to come out the tap is going to smell like an old dog, and it's going to be brown. That's because these backup systems that they use are all, they test them all the time, but they never run water through them very often. And it's going to be not good for consumption. It's going to be boil only, and it's only going to be good for flushing toilets. You're not even going to want to wash in it. But then it's only going to get worse from there, because after about 2 weeks goes by, the pressure's going to drop. And the cities are not going to have any water. Now, if you're out in the country, if you've got a drilled well that's down deep, and you've got some sort of a pump that goes down in the pipe, some sort of a jet pump or something that goes down in the pipe that feeds your water up to your house, that's only going to bring water up if you've got electricity. So if you've got that kind of a well, say you got a 2-inch or a 3-inch casing on your well, you can actually get water out of that system. It's not easy. You might actually have to pull your pump up out of the casing, or if there's a pump on top of the casing, on top of the ground, you might have to take the pump off and unbolt the cap off the casing, and that casing goes down into your water supply, down into the aquifer. If that's the kind, you say you're out in the country, you can get water out of that. But it's not easy. You can get water out. But it's easier if you've got an old Doug-type well. Not many people have those anymore. I'm fortunate. I have one here, a Doug-type well. It's about 35 feet deep, and it's got well crocks, you know, and you could lower a bucket down into it to get water out. An awful lot of people, they live on a city water supply, and your city water supply is going to go defunct. And so you're going to have a way of catching water or a way of getting water. Because if this crisis occurs, I think that the biggest amount of people that are actually going to die from it are going to die from not having enough water to drink. They're going to die from dehydration. Especially in around the cities. They're going to be hellholes, the cities, if we have this kind of a crisis. So there's an awful lot to think about in this kind of a thing. So your food supply, you got beans. Beans are great. You know, both dry and canned beans are great. But you got to have water to soak. If you've got your beans that are the dried beans, you got to soak them for a couple days in water. And then you got to drain the water off before you cook them, and then put new fresh water in them. The beans might even be, you might even be able to sprout them, and this is good for to eat things that are like green, because if you've got your dried flour and you've got all your other things you're eating, like you're making bread for yourself out of your dried flour, and you've got your beans that you're eating, and you're getting a lot of carbohydrate, you know. And if you could maybe snare a wild animal or something, you know, you can get a little bit of protein. It's going to be hard to get protein because in this kind of a situation, it might be hard to get protein. People might end up eating rodents and everything. Anything that they can get, squirrels. you know. But in the end, you need to have something that's going to keep you from getting something called scurvy. Because if you don't get anything fresh, if all you're eating is your old dried flour and whatever else you can get for protein and whatever else, after a few weeks goes by, you can get scurvy. And scurvy's not good. You start to bleed from the gums and everything else, you know. And so if you can grow a few sprouts, green sprouts or something, from some of your dried beans, and if you can, I think you can actually get some vitamin C even from pine trees and from pine needles. You can make like pine needle tea or whatever, you know. You might need to do stuff like that in order to get enough vitamin C to keep you from getting scurvy, you know. In the old days, on the ships from England, the English used to take limes with them on the ships to keep from getting scurvy. And this is why they got the term, they call them a limey. You're a limey. Because they used to take limes with them to keep from getting scurvy on board the ships in the old days. So there's a lot to think about in a disaster like this, if a disaster like this were to occur. I said I was going to talk about radiation. First off, radiation would come down in the rain. That's how it comes down. And the rain would fall on the ground, and the rain would be full of radiation. Now, what you need for radiation is, you need a bottle of iodine. And what you do is, you take the iodine, and you take 1 drop of the iodine, and you mix it in a glass of water and drink 1 glass a day of this, if only. Now, listen to me. You don't do this in normal circumstances like we have right now. You only do this if the world is turned to shit. You know what I mean? So I'm not telling you to go do this right now. You don't do this. Because you get the iodine you need from the salt that you eat. The salt's iodinized salt. You get your iodine. And if you think you're a little bit low on iodine right now in the situation that we have right now, go into your local health food store and buy some kelp. Right? If you think you're low on iodine. Don't go taking iodine from the bottle. That's for cuts only. You put it on your cuts and stuff. Your iodine. But now I'm talking about if we get into a real, and radiation is, I'm talking about a situation where radiation is falling from the sky, in the clouds. You know, that's when you can, it's a desperate measure to take the iodine directly from the bottle and use the dropper and take a drop and put a drop into a glass of water and mix the water up and drink it every day. You know, and that'll keep the radiation from being uptaked into your thyroid. But here's the thing. More than that is, if that situation is happening, and we're getting nuclear fallout, big time, coming down from the clouds and rain, the second thing is, never go out in the rain. Don't go out in that rain. Because if that rain gets on you, it's going to cook you. And you won't feel it cooking you. Your hair will fall out. Your bowels will swell up and everything, and in about a month you'll be dead if you get out in that rain. So if you stay inside, you won't get cooked. Never go out in the rain in a shift like that. If there's a nuclear thing happening, don't go out in the rain. And even after it's rained, I mean, I don't like radiation. The thing is this stuff just gives me the willies because you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't. And so this kind of a thing, I don't like these nuclear power plants because it's like a sword of Damocles over humanity's head. Why they put these stupid things in, I don't know. I think the people that put them in are just did it for greed because they thought of the amount of money that they could make selling the power to all of us. And they didn't really care what happens to us as long as they had that money. So anyway, suffice to say, hopefully we never get this kind of a disaster. I've reached about the time limit of how long I like to talk on these kind of a program, you know. And this kind of a program is something that I don't necessarily talk about that often, because it's kind of like something I hope never happens, because I know that probably only a small percentage of us out here would survive it. Maybe 1 or 2% of the population worldwide would survive a total meltdown of the financial system that would lock up the entire system, so that the world would all descend into chaos, and all of our communications would come to a cease. All of our electricity would go down, all of our power grids would go down, everything would just kind of freeze. That kind of a situation would exterminate a tremendous amount of the world's population, and it would be an absolute travesty, an absolute tragedy, because we could put systems in that could prevent it from happening, but they don't, because of greed. And so I don't know what to make of these greedy bankers. This is why why I don't like them. I don't like them because they don't care about us. They only care about one thing, the bottom line, the dollar. But they would all end up dead too. What's the point? The whole of humanity would go down. What's the point of these billionaires out there, these philanthropist billionaires giving away billions of dollars to help the poor and stuff, if they've created the kind of system that's going to go down and kill all of us anyway? You know what I mean? Why don't they donate their money into trying to do some something that would stop this from happening? Is because I think an awful lot of them are the globalists that figure that this is the best thing to happen. They really want to see humanity's numbers reduced. This is why they put up those Georgia Guidestones, and it says on the Guidestones that there should only be 500 million people on the earth. And right now there's like, 7 billion and growing, the numbers? Anybody just has to do the math to know that they want to see a lot of people gone. So this whole financial crash that's coming, how bad is it going to get? Is it going to lock up the financial system? And it has a potential to. I don't think it will. I think that they'll step in and that they will. I think that we're going to have our deflationary spike event. I think that's written into the cards, that I've been talking about the deflationary spike event. But I think that they're going to step in rather quickly to stop it with financial, they're going to hit it with money creation. And this time, when they hit that with money creation, they're going to destroy the purchasing power of the fiat currencies. And then we're going to make a transition. Because they destroy the purchasing, this is what I think is going to happen. Rather than our financial crisis where everything's going to lock up, I think things are going to be bad, but I don't think things are going to lock up. I think we're going to make a transition over from the fiat money system that we have right now over to a cryptographic monetary system that's limited in supply, not by the central banks, but limited in supply just because of the way the software is written. That's what limits the supply. And so you're not putting it in charge of a man to limit the supply. You're putting the charge in the software, which cannot be corrupted. So like Bitcoin right now, 21 million hard limit. That'll never be exceeded because the software won't allow it ever to be exceeded. Because if Bitcoin was really like these guys say it is, these guys are out there and they say, oh, it's nothing more than another fiat currency, they don't know what they're talking about. Because if it was really a fiat currency, then there would be no software they would be able to make as many Bitcoins as they wanted, just like any of the other fiat currencies, the real fiat currencies. And there would be the Bitcoin core developers would be able to say, oh, we don't want 21 million Bitcoins anymore. We want 50 million. And next year they'd be able to say, well, we want 200 million and then 400 million. And then we would really have a Bitcoin fiat currency. It would be a fiat currency. But they can't even do that. They cannot do that. The software developers cannot say they want to raise the hard limit of Bitcoin. That's written into the software. And it cannot be changed. And this is what gives Bitcoin its value. The same with Litecoin. You know, and the same with a lot of these other cryptocurrencies. But now there are a few cryptocurrencies out there that they do have a little bit of flexibility, and they are more like a fiat currency. Like, I'm not going to name them off, but there's a number of them that are that way. But I think what was going to happen is we're going to make this transition over from the fiat system, and we're going to have to do it fast when the time comes, over to the digital system, which is the cryptocurrencies. And I think the central banks are somehow planning on trying to snooker it in so that they have control. I think somehow sneakily they've got something planned up their sleeve. I don't think they've given up at all. Part of the plan might be, it occurred to me tonight, I was thinking about it, and I said to myself, gee, what if they let Bitcoin grow to a certain point, let it grow really huge where it's starting to actually destroy the fiat currencies, and then they were to step in and say, hey, look, Bitcoin is destroying the financial system. You know what I mean? This is a danger to all of humanity. Bitcoin is. We have to step in and regulate it. But we know you love Bitcoin, so we're going to take it over, and we're going to become the central bank run, with all the faith of the central bank behind it and everything else, and they try to take it over somehow, using a crisis as a tool to help them to achieve these goals. You know, something like that was running through my mind. What if they've got something up their sleeve, you know? I can't believe that they're going to let control go this easy. They're too clever, they are. They're too crafty, you know, and they're too clever. And to let the control go this easy and just let everything slide this easy. They got something up their sleeve. I'm just not exactly sure what it is. But my mind is working on it, thinking what could it be that they got up their sleeve. I don't trust them. I don't trust these bankers. They're up to something, and Bitcoin and stuff is part of the whole thing's probably all been planned out and orchestrated. I mean, even what Jamie Dimon come up there and he said yesterday, he said that Bitcoin is absolutely worthless, it's no good, it's a Ponzi scheme, and he made fun of anybody who owned it. He said all this stuff, you know, and it was all a scheme because now he's out there and J.P. Morgan Bank's buying Bitcoin today. They're buying the thing that he said was so bad and evil and rotten. They're buying it. He used that to knock the price down just so he could have some more. You know, not personally buy it, but his bank's buying it. J.P. Morgan is buying it, buying Bitcoin. So if it's so rotten and awful, why are they going for it? There's something to work here. There's something going on. I just smell a rat. I know when I smell a rat. I can smell a rat in all of this. So listen, thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next show. Bye.